I've got 4 world records. I'm the fastest woman to run a marathon on every continent and the North Pole in both time elapsed and running time. And I had my kneecap removed, and I was told I would never walk properly again, and running would be not possible for me. I remember, some races I've finished just literally in tears. I'm in so much pain, and with my knee. But I know that when I stop running, the pain will stop, because it's something just very unique to me. I really am nothing special. If I can do it, you can do it. You can probably do it an awful lot better than I've done it.
And we're rolling. So Fiona, thanks so much for joining me.
Oh, lovely to be here. Thank you for having me.
Yeah, it's awesome. So for anyone who doesn't know, tell me a little bit about your achievements, because you have a whole bunch of world records to your name.
Yeah. I'm a bit humble here. I've got 4 world records. I'm the fastest woman to run a marathon on every continent and the North Pole in both time elapsed and running time. I'm also the fastest woman to run a half marathon in an animal costume. Wow. Which we'll come to later, I'm sure. Yeah. That was just something I did as a little aside. But yeah, I don't really consider myself as a runner. I'm just somebody applying myself to running. It's always weird when people say, you're an elite athlete. And I think, I did run 2:38 in a marathon, but it's kind of just something I've done to advocate for animals. That's all I do with my running. I don't consider myself particularly great at anything, but my one strength is that I understand that I know very little, but I always want to learn more, rather than sort of put myself out there as some great guru or expert. I know I have very little talent for running, but I have a lot of tenacity.
Sure, I think that's one reason you've made such an impact, and so many people have been interested in your story, is it's not just about running. There's another kind of cause behind it, and particularly your interest in the animals. And I think your running, it helps provide money for your stable. So is that right? Tower Hill Stables?
Yeah, basically the story of my life is that I went vegan when I was 6 years old. And people say, well, why? Because vegans become a bit of a buzzword. But back in the 1970s, it wasn't. When I say I went vegan, I wasn't some little kind of sort of brilliant kind of bohemian background like Svengali that sat there and thought, I must go vegan. My parents were, I come from a very, very normal background, in that my dad was in the mining industry and my mum was a nurse. And I didn't say to my mum, Mummy, I want to be vegan. I didn't even know what the word was. It was just a concept. I hated the concept of harming animals, injustice to animals, and I've always loved them. It's always been in my core. I can't ever remember being any different, and my mum can't remember me being any different. I always rejected meat, but when I got a little bit, at 3 years old, it was like no negotiation, not having any meat. Beyond that, I started to ask my mum a few questions about where other products came from, and I kind of went vegan fully at 6 years old. But it was a reaction more than a decision at that age. I was very fortunate in that my mum stood by me. She has been accused of everything from child abuse to cruelty. Veganism was aligned to an eating disorder. It's been tough when I was younger, certainly. But the motivation to be vegan has never been hard for me. It's very, very natural. So I went cheerfully along that path, always a dream, never thought it'd be a reality to be able to actually physically help animals in terms of having an animal sanctuary. Realised that dream in my 20s when I started Tower Hill Stables Animal Sanctuary. But very quickly I realised that wasn't the answer. It was certainly the answer for the animals I could physically rescue, but not for it was always hitting at the symptoms, never at the cause. So I just basically wanted to promote veganism in a positive, proactive and peaceful way. That's what my life is all about. I'm not confrontational. It's kind of my life has been, it's just about dedication to something and kind of self-fulfillment through what I do. So I was kind of thinking to myself, if veganism ever hits the press, this is back in the noughties, early noughties, it was always in a negative way. I wanted to be positive and say, I've been vegan for like like nearly 3 decades, and look at me, I'm not looking like I was dug up. I've got all the strength and energy, both physical and mental, that you need, but I needed a platform from which to speak out. And people forget that before social media, the only outlet or champion of your cause was the mainstream media or press, and that was either going to be positive or negative, and I wanted it to be positive. So it was just I was searching for a platform, and running wasn't the most obvious one for me because I had many surgeries in my teenage years, nothing to do with being vegan. It was a orthopedic problem I had, and I had my kneecap removed, and I was told I would never walk properly again, and running would be not possible for me. But in 2001, 2002, the only women's sport that was garnering any attention, certainly in the UK, was marathon running, because of Paula Radcliffe's flamboyant success in the event. And the idea was, all the kind of adjectives were there. It was being described as the toughest event on the athletics calendar, both mentally and physically challenging. This is what I wanted to project a vegan, as a vegan lifestyle. If I could compete in and hopefully complete a marathon, it would be definitive proof that as a vegan you can do anything. And it kind of expanded from there. The first challenge was just to get round one. That's what that was the goal. Marathons, they weren't so prevalent at the time. There were really only the major marathons, and it was quite a serious event. There weren't so many fun runners and charity races back then. So that was my first goal, to just get round one, see if I could literally complete 26.2 miles. Couldn't online Google how to train for a marathon. All my running has been like self-styled. I still today, I've never had a coach. I've never had any of the fancy bits and pieces that people have for running. I'm very honest about my running stuff from charity shops when I can. I do have to have quite good shoes and socks because of the cushioning I need for my knee. But other than that, I've literally one leg in front. I've just coached myself. I don't even have a Strava or a Garmin or a pulse monitor. I've got my old Ironman triathlon watch, my trusty, and even that doesn't work anymore. So I have to kind of like work out, okay, it's running 4 minutes fast, so I have to calculate back and when I started. I've always said, and I think we're losing touch with this at the moment, we have the most sophisticated computer known to man about our person, your brain, and learn to access it and utilize it. And that's what I've just done. As I say, when I realized that I could run or kind of hop or hobble or whatever it is that I do, I then thought, it's a big investment in my time and my energy to train for races and to get to the next level. But yeah, I soon realized that it was actually quite positive in two ways. A, to promote veganism, but B, as free advertising for the sanctuary, because I've got no advertising budget or anything like that. Everything that I raise for the sanctuary goes directly to the animals. I don't take a wage or anything like that.
Sanctuary was before you started marathon running?
Yeah. I started the sanctuary back in 1996. And literally it was then that I became most acutely aware of the kind of suffering and abuse that animals, the demand to take in animals was just like far outstripped anything that I could possibly cope with. So as I say, it was always hitting at the symptoms rather than the cause of why they were suffering, especially focusing on the liberation of ex-farmed animals. I was getting calls from people, who'd got a pig in their garden that had escaped from an abattoir. Could I take it in? It's like, I'd only got a small sanctuary. So then I thought to myself very quickly, I need to do something else. I need to literally promote veganism. And that's when the running came about. It was just a form of being active for the animals, literally, in terms of promoting the core of what is Fiona, which is veganism and plant-based living. At the time, I was literally focusing on animals, but now as I've grown older, I've become aware of more issues like the environmental issues, the personal health that it's afforded me, and the way it benefits other people around the planet by, you know, addressing issues like climate change and water poverty issues. So I'm constantly on a learning curve with what I'm doing. But yeah, I mean, I only started running to promote veganism, to be truth told. And the kind of thing was, I started just hoping to complete a marathon, and it had grown to, in a couple of years' time, I said Paula Radcliffe was doing really well in the event, and I thought, you know, I could kind of jump on the platform she'd already created. But after a couple of years, I was running in a vegetarian cycling and athletics club because there was no vegan runners back then. And a guy that was also in the club with me said, you do realise that you're on the elite start, you've qualified for the elite start of London, you're going to be standing next to Paula Radcliffe in, you know, 45 minutes ahead in the main field, running through the streets of London with basically a free advertising opportunity for veganism if we start a vegan running club. And that's how Vegan Runners was started in 2004.
Wow.
So literally, I mean, I don't know if people out there are, you know, into running or not, but you've got to be in an affiliated running club to go on to some of these starts, because they figure that your advertising potential, you know, they're very, very keen on kind of keeping a tight rein on that. So you can't just go on advertising your company or your cause. It's all like perspex lettering, and make sure that the logo on your socks isn't too big. It's quite strict on these start lines. So the only way we could get me out there with the word vegan was actually to start an affiliated running club. And that's what we did back in 2004. Probably my proudest achievement within my running is starting the club, because it's impacted so many others positively. Not just with running, it's like a little community, it's become a little kind of network of information, but of support for each other. So yeah, that's how my running journey started. I think it's always so much nicer to help other people than actually just help yourself, kind of thing. So yeah, I mean, I don't fixate on what I've done at all, but it's so rewarding and inspiring when people write to you and say, the club's made such a difference to me. I went up to Birmingham to do some filming for the Vegan Society before COVID, and one lady came over to me, and she was actually, they'd asked for some vegan runners to be in the background, and she said, oh, the club's made such a difference to me. Her parents had both died the previous year, and it'd become like a little surrogate family to her, to support her. That meant a lot to me. People write to me, you know, what one lady wrote to me, and she was a vet, and she said, I wanted to take my running to the next level. I didn't actually think it would be possible leading the hectic life that I lead. She said, but seeing what you've done with the sanctuary, and you've fitted it in with the firefighting and everything else, I realized that, yeah, if I focused myself, I might be able to get to that, you know, sub 3.5 hour barrier that she wanted to get to. So it's always so much nicer to think that you've made a difference to others, just than you've gone out there and like won a trophy or PB or something like that. For me anyway.
Sure, of course. I really appreciate that you are running for something bigger than yourself. You have a big cause behind you. I like also that you called yourself vegan before there was even, no, sorry, you were a vegan before there was even like a word for it. It wasn't like a thing back then. It was, as you said, it was more reactionary. Whereas now, you know, there's the, I want to be on the gluten-free diet, or the this lifestyle, or that lifestyle. But with you, it was a lot more raw and authentic, which I really appreciate. And another thing I see is with people getting into fitness is before they get into fitness, it's all of the research, it's buying the shoes, it's buying the watch, it's buying the programs. But for you, it was none of that. It was just completely reactionary, and that it's taken you really far. And obviously, you've really become a pillar within your community, and made some really good progress for vegan runners, and just bringing vegan on the scene. You know, particularly I've kind of seen it become more common in the last 5 or 6 years.
Oh yeah, I mean, definitely. I mean, it was like an alien word. I mean, and you know, it has been a struggle, even with the successes I was getting. I think my running, it's always been strategic and creative in what I'm doing with my running. I'll look at always what I'm doing with anything. is it achieving what I want to achieve? And because my running has never been about, okay, I've set myself I punch way above my weight. I look back and think, with the running, I really have done. Most people, to get sub 3 hours, to get sub 250, to get sub 240. It's been, I'm not actually a selfish person or a greedy person, but I've been greedy in terms of hungry for results, only because it was a simple formulation. The better I can be, the better I can promote what I want to promote in a positive way. That's all it's been about. Now, when I started to run, I was pretty much the only vegan in the village. So it was like no point in being buried in the middle of 50,000 runners in the Berlin Marathon. I wanted to be out on the front start line with Haile Gebrselassie. That was going to showcase what I wanted to showcase. Even now, though, I don't look at what I've done and think, oh, I'm faster than you or I'm better than you. It was just at the time, that was the most effective way of doing what I wanted to do and the reason I was out there. Because actually running 100 mile a week over 9 sessions is really punishing week in, week out. And I was thinking, is it kind of worth it? Is it achieving what I need to achieve? Or should I go away and try something else, something completely different? And so with my running journey, I started off, it is bizarre what I did, because I've never had a coach. I've never had any physio or anything like that. I don't have anything special at all. I know very little about running. I just know the faster your legs go, the quicker you get there. That's all I know. And I've self-trained. I don't have a running group because I live very rural, and it's always a bit hit and miss as to when I'll be able to go out. I've only ever focused on 2 big marathons a year because I was always very time and very financially poor. So the idea was, if I'm trying to promote veganism to its full potential, there's no point. I could have gone every weekend probably and won a local 10K or a local half marathon, but it didn't have much impact. So sort of, if somebody were to say, it's saying you've won the main start of the Great North Run, or you've come top 20 in the London Marathon, that's got some punch to it. It's got a soundbite. That's what I've done, and people go, oh wow, so I did that for a few years, and it was really surreal because I was like literally tucking my vest into my knickers and putting my plimsolls on for my training. And then, I'd literally get the invite to, from Jos Hermans, who's Haile Gebrselassie coach, or Mark Mill, the director of Berlin Marathon. They write and say, would you consider coming and running my marathon? And, I'll pay expenses, and, you get an elite start. And it's like, so you get on the plane as Miss Amateur Nobody, and you get off the plane as like one of the elites, and you get going to the technical meetings of these races, and I'm sitting at the back playing noughts and crosses with my mum thinking, and you get some of the best athletes in the world discussing when they're going to make their Porsche or how many pacemakers they need, and I'm thinking literally, the only pacemaker I'll be needing is in my heart, the only push I'm going to need is from behind to get me to the finish line. But perhaps it's my cavalier innocence towards the whole task in hand that has kind of not allowed me to become overwhelmed by it all, because it has been somewhat ridiculous. I remember I went to one race, I think it was the Amsterdam Marathon, and I'd been invited by Jos Hermans and staying in the elite hotel, and I didn't realise until when I actually got there that Haile Gebrselassie was in the bedroom next door to me and my mum. It was like, oh, he's going for a world record, and it was, a bit of an idol of mine. It is still, because he was such a good ambassador for the sport. Beyond his running ability, he was one of the most kind and generous men with his time that you could possibly hope to meet. And I remember Jos sent me an email and to sign on in the hotel. And it was my proudest moment going with this email down to where the race headquarters were for the elites. And I kind of walked in, and they looked up and, yes, can I help you? And I said, oh, I'm here to sign on. And they just looked and said, sign-ons at the Olympic Stadium. And I realised I don't look like an elite marathon runner, and I kind of fumbling then in my bag, and what this email that says here. And anyway, we got into conversation, and they said, okay, you're not bad. If you ran out your skin, you might come in the top 15, top 12, which would be a massive result. And I came 8th overall.
Wow.
In the race, purely because I everyone has their own path to a certain destination. And I don't mean to be cavalier about anybody else's. I mean, for me, people write and say, you know, what's the secret of your success? And like you say, they go into the diets and they go into the shoe technology and they go into every little micro detail. And sometimes I feel like saying, have you thought about doing a bit more training? You know what I mean? Actually getting out there and train, because that's what I've done. I mean, that is, I have to be truthful. I have absolutely beasted it up with the training. And I think that with a marathon, there's a definite correlation. It's almost like the amount of training you do over the weeks is like taking a small amount of money and depositing in a bank. And on race day, if the weather's with you and your fitness is with you, in terms of you're not ill or you haven't got an injury, you will withdraw that, what you've put in. And I put in an awful lot of mileage over an awful long time. I don't think to this day, over a 20-year running career, I've been lucky. I've never had a running injury. I've had injuries which have impeded my running, like when I first went to MDS with 2 broken toes. That did not help in that race. But yeah, I mean,
2 broken toes. Oh my gosh.
Yeah, I'd fractured 2 toes the week before Marathon des Sables, and because I hadn't done that much research into the race, and at the time there wasn't that much available on the internet about it, I'm kind of, hey Fiona, you're a 2:38 marathon runner, you can get round a week through the desert. And little did I know what I was letting myself in for. I really did not. But that's pretty good that I didn't know. I didn't want to let people down. People knew I was going to attempt to be the first vegan woman to take on this enormous challenge. It was very, very difficult because I'm ethical vegan, so I wasn't going to carry a downfill sleeping bag. So, you know, everybody when I got out there was like comparing to the microgram of what their sleeping bag would puff up to, and it was like, you know, it weighed about 3 ounces and it went down to -10, and I've got this massive mother of a kind of ex-army surplus synthetic thing that weighed over 1 kilo and was practically bigger than I was, and I had a huge pack because there was no expedition food for vegans. It was just literally a bag full of Mar Baker bars, and off you trundle, Fiona. And
wow.
My feet would not actually fit properly into my shoes with the fractured toes before I went out there. And they do tell you to get bigger shoes, preferably 1 size bigger, with a wide toe box, because your feet unless
swell,
you are,
right.
they were going to swell at over 50-degree heat in the desert. They were going to swell, and mine was swollen before I went, but you know, hey, what did I know? I know by the long stage, we arrived at, I wasn't physically struggling in terms of, it was well within my compass physical fitness wise. It was just this appalling mess of a foot that I'd now created for myself. And we decided, a guy in my tent, Paul, we decided we were going to mentor 2 guys around, Brett and James, who were really, really struggling. Brett had got all sorts of stomach problems and James's skin was starting to fall off. So it was really, we were going to mentor them around the long stage and stay with them. And we turned up at this overnight kind of tent, and it was just like Beelzebub's den. I mean, there were just people sort of rocking and looking at little camp stoves and willing water to boil so they could have a meal. And we just went in there, and James and the others were gonna sleep, and I was gonna keep watch and wake them up 2 hours so we could continue on in this monstrous trek across desert terrain. And I said to Paul, I've taken the bandage thing off my foot. What do you think this is on my foot? And we were looking with this, like, squinting with these head torches. And I just remember him saying, at first glance, and you must bear in mind I'm no doctor, it looks like the bone is sticking out of your little toe. And sure enough it was. And in this bizarre reality that you form in the desert, you just want to finish the race. That's all you want. It was now Thursday, and I was just desperate to get through it. I didn't want people to be worried about me and, you know, suggest that I shouldn't have gone. And I didn't want to fail, because I thought, isn't it marvellous? I've gone out here with 2 fractured toes. I mean, the world's billed as the toughest race in the world. And if I can't get round it, people might very well blame the fact that I'm vegan. In fact, I thought they might even blame the fact that, I mean, I thought they're probably going to say that I fractured 2 toes because I've got brittle bones because I'm vegan. Nothing like that. A horse had stood on them, so I'd done well to come away with a couple of fractures. And Yeah, I mean, I got through it. It was monstrous. It was like what goes on in the desert stays in the desert, and there was a lot of goings on out there. But I managed to battle my way through it. But yeah, I mean, in my running career, I look back and think, did I really do that, or am I just saying that? With it? No, I did actually do. So anyway, I started the marathon running just literally 2 big races a year, which was very time efficient in terms of I could do all the training at home, work it around the animals, and then just be away for literally a weekend, go and put in a big result, come home and get back to looking after the animals. I did that for a few years, but I kind of thought, I'm not going to run any quicker than 2:38, and I'm not going to place any better than 20th in the London Marathon. That's as much as I'm ever going to do, and I've been lucky to do it. So then I looked to take it down a tier, go and find races that I could win, break course records, that sort of thing. Did that for a while, and then I thought, okay, I've got some trophies and medals and whatever, but regarding the impact in terms of promoting veganism, it just wasn't there. People weren't, the press, the media, they weren't interested at the time. It really was of no interest. So I remember in 2011, must have been, I was nominated, a bit embarrassing, Daily Mail Woman of the Year or some Inspirational Woman of the Year, and like wow. Your mum would, she go off and buy 50 copies of the Daily Mail. It was really embarrassing in itself. And so I'm flicking through it, and it's there, woman runs across desert to save animals, and I'm looking at it, and it must have been 212 actually, and I'm thinking, they haven't mentioned the fact that I'm vegan. They have just omitted it. And it was just, wow. I did talk about, when I came back from the North Pole in 2013, I'd won the race, I'd broken the world record, I'd done everything I'd set out to do. And the BBC rang me. And yeah, we really want this story. We want you to come up to Salford. You can bring your mum. We'll pay expenses to bring your teddy bear. Bring what you want, Percy bear, of course. And I said, that's fantastic. I've cracked it. Got it this time. And the only reason I entered the North Pole Marathon, that was kind of by default, because I've got these strange, bizarre set. I call them friends, but when I say my friend suggested this to me, I'm acutely aware that people are thinking, well, what do your enemies suggest if your friends suggest you trudge across the desert, with a giant backpack for a week? What are your enemies telling you to do? But it was like literally, I don't buy running magazines. I don't indulge in any kind of running activity other than physically running, and it's a bizarre way of running, in that I am that very person that literally is thinking, I've got to go running, and I'm looking for socks, and I'm thinking, oh no, I know where they are, and then you're in the washing machine fishing them out and thinking, oh god, yeah, I'll get away with these and run up the road. They probably run without me some of the times when I'm going out, but I'm literally amateur when it comes to that sort of thing. And the minute I get home, the wellies go on and I'm back outside, I'm not thinking about running. But some guy I know said, why don't you do Marathon des Sables? That's what, if you want a bit of impact, you've done the fast marathons, the road races, do the toughest foot race in the world. That's in 2:12. I did Marathon des Sables, and I didn't do too badly in it, even though I got the fractured toes. I think I came 5th in one of the stages and stuff like that. So it was bad, but I am a relatively quick marathon runner, which stood me in good stead, and I got a lot of miles in my legs, so I got through that. And indeed, for some bizarre reason, I enjoyed it so much. I know that is weird. 50-degree heat, giant backpacks, mega mileage over deserts, living in tents with no sanitation or water or food or whatever. It was I enjoyed it. I enjoyed the concept of it more than anything. I enjoyed the lessons it taught me about myself. I enjoyed the fact that it was literally you against you in the desert, and you've got to, if you weren't carrying it in your pack on day 1, you weren't getting it on day 5, and I just enjoyed the challenge of it all, really above and beyond.
Sorry, quick question. What was more difficult for you, the North Pole or the desert?
Well, it depends. The North Pole was just a straightforward marathon. If you were to ask me where I would be most scared of problems, you wouldn't survive long in the temperatures at the North Pole. Sure. In the desert, I mean, I say I do my best running in the heat. I don't literally run quicker as it gets hotter, but it takes less out of me than it does most people. So I think one of the hottest days we had in Marathon des Sables was 54.6 degrees, which was a very hot situation. Gosh. to be running, and you've got a backpack, and you're not just running on roads, you're running great big sand dunes and whatever, but it's not affecting me as much as it is the next person. With regard to the North Pole, it's slightly different in terms of if you set off at a pace and you finish at that pace, you'll probably be all right. But if you slow down, as you're going to get hypothermia, you're going to get problems, frostbite, stuff like that. There were many hazards like that.
Is that a lot of people in those marathons? Is it a big turnout?
There is a surprising amount, actually. I think when I ran the North Pole, there were about 60 people in the race. Okay. It's a bizarre event. I mean, it's surreal. I mean, I look back at it now, and I only got the place by default. I'd done the Marathon des Sables, I got the bucket, I got the medal. You know, I'd done it as a vegan woman. Ethically, I'd gone and done Marathon des Sables. I wanted to go back the next year and hit it hard, hopefully without anything broken. And the race organisers actually said it's quite a tough race to get into at the time. It was quite difficult to get an entry, big waiting list. But because I'd effected a rescue of a lady who was in my tent that was really struggling that year, she'd actually she had to pull out in the end. The race said, if you want to come back, we'd welcome having you, and you can have a place in next year's race. And that was the plan until this same friend said to me, look, you've done it. Do the Arctic races. If you want to make that impact, do the races at the poles. And I thought, well, hang on a minute, there can't be a marathon at the North Pole. It must just be somewhere in very northern Norway, and not for the sake of splitting hairs, they must call it the North Pole because it's quite a long way up there. And I looked into it, and it was a very expensive race to enter, totally prohibitive to me, you know, which pretty much everything when it comes to money. So I made an inquiry and didn't take it any further. And then I think it was round about Christmas that year, 2012, the race organizer wrote to me and said, if you want to do it, I admire your cause and your charity. I'll give you a place if you come out and do the race. And it was actually absolutely coincided with Marathon des Sables, so I couldn't do both. So I decided it was an opportunity, overwhelming opportunity, to go and tackle this. I didn't know if I'd be able to do it because my knee is very weak. If I slip, I dislocate it very easily. Wow. And I didn't know if I knew I'd coped in the desert, but I didn't know whether I'd cope on ice and snow. But I just wanted to go and give it a try. And it was bizarre. I mean, you flew out from Longyearbyen to the actual, or the nearest place that they could set up a camp where the ice was thick enough to land the plane at the North Pole. And you are quickly chaperoned into appallingly hot tents, like saunas, and you're left there, and the plane goes back, and it fetches the next tranche of runners, and you look out and you realise that's my address now, Fiona Oakes, the North Pole. And it was just a bizarre, surreal experience. I have to look back and pinch myself. Did I really do it? And I look at the trophy and I'm like, yeah, you did it, you won it. Wow. And I won it by a very very big margin, placed, you know, on the podium with the men. There was a Irish international runner and a French international runner and me that podiumed. And yeah, it was very very cold. I remember once I thought I felt my big toe, and I thought, oh, I hope I haven't got frostbite in my big toe. And I'd kind of been focusing on the running, and I just looked up. And it was about 3 o'clock in the morning because there's no night there. You know, you go when the weather permits you to go. And I thought, you're at the North Pole, Fiona. You're running a marathon. I thought, there's nobody around. There's nothing here. You're running on ice at the North Pole. And stories do come out, like when they land the plane there. You know, very very skilled pilots that do it. Russian pilots, because you know you can get a tsunami underneath the ice, and it can actually the plane could just vanish into the Arctic Ocean. You know, there was I was laid in my bunk, getting very very hot, and I heard a dog barking, and I thought, oh, you're dreaming, wake up, you know, you must think you're back home. And I got donned all the gear. It took about 20 minutes to get enough clothes on to literally set foot outside the tent. It was just like a cold that kind of fits you, like, yeah. And I went off to find the said dog, which was barking. And one of the Russian guys that had got in with him, and I said, oh, you've got a dog here. Why have you got a dog here? And he said, oh, he's here to warn us if polar bears are in the area. And the stupid Fiona said, how does he do that? Like he sends them an email or something like that. He said he barks. And I thought, but he's barking. And he said, yes, there's polar bears in the area.
Oh my
and
gosh.
yeah, and I was one of the most, actually it was monumental moments, moving, really, really, yeah, it really had an impact on my life, that if for the faster runners, if the weather permitted, they choppered you to the actual North Pole, the geographic North Pole. And it was so cold, this chopper was like falling to pieces, that the Russians had got out there. And I felt a nudge next to me, and one of the guys said, look down there. And I saw a polar bear coming out of an ice hole, and on the North Pole. And at that point, one of the researchers told me, he said, there is a school of thought which says the actual geographic North Pole will not be under ice, it'll be water in 10 years time, and that will be 2023. Seeing the polar bear there, it really made me think, gosh, you know, climate change, all these issues that, yeah, I'd known about, but I hadn't really thought about so deeply. I just known that for me it was right to be vegan, you know, certain, you know, for the animal welfare issues and the emissions, carbon emissions, but it didn't actually impact me. And that I will always kind of, I shut my eyes and I see that polar bear and I remember why I'm doing what I'm doing. And it was very, very monumental. And that's when I won the race. I won it so easily. But it's a very, very small group of people that do these extreme marathons. But one guy suggested to me, you're entered in the South Pole race, the Antarctic race. Why don't you just, you know, run a marathon on every other continent, and then, you know, in the time in between these two races, and then you'll have a world record. And I thought, that sounds like a good idea. It did when I was like on the euphoria of winning this race. But when I got back into like, you know, the rose tinted spectacles came off and I kind of costed it all. I thought, it's not going to happen. So I put it on a back burner. But I was lucky. I did it, and I broke 3 world records. So
Wow.
yeah, so it was.
That's insane. That's incredible.
Yeah.
That's such a fascinating story. You've got so many different things that I could talk about. And honestly, I need to say you're like one of the easiest people to podcast with, because you can, like, your experience is so vast, you can just kind of keep elaborating on it. And there's so many different places that I could go to next that I'd like to tackle. But there's one point in your life that you just touched upon, and I'd like to come back to this. So you said when you had your knee surgery, you had your kneecap replaced. The doctor told you you'd probably never be able to walk properly again, never mind run, never mind do a marathon. So see that period between you doing your first marathon and being told that by the doctor, what was that journey like? When was it you realized, no, wait, I've got more in the tank than what the doctor thought?
Well, I didn't have it replaced, I had it removed. So I'd not got anything to actually stabilize my leg. And that's why he said it's going to be very, very difficult for you. And funnily enough, until Keegan made the film, never occurred to me what a rubbishy running style I've got and how I do limp when I run. Because I don't know. I mean, I know I'm not the most a kind of graceful runner. I realize that, but I'm quite powerful. And yeah, I mean, I was actually told, I went to college in Oxford and I was told start cycling because that's low impact and it's leg strengthening. So I did bike racing for a number of years just to strengthen my legs. It was a hard time. I've missed a lot of schooling. I mean, this is before home tutoring. I mean, I was in and out of hospital 17 times with these operations, you know, having all sorts of surgeries, and I need to try and correct this problem. On both legs it was developing because I spent so long on crutches, non-weight bearing. The other leg was becoming problematic as well. I don't like to dwell too much on it because I always am aware that so many people have got such worse problems. It's literally hardly worth the consequence of talking about. But it was a very, very hard time. And actually, people ask, does your leg hurt when you run? Yes, it does. Not all the time, but certainly when I was doing the road running, up at about 20 miles, because you're in one position on one surface, your foot strike is the same, you're looking for the flat part on the road, because that's the thing about marathon running. To get the best times out of yourself, you have to be on the best optimum courses, and the best courses are the big road marathon courses like London and Berlin and Amsterdam. And to get to the front of the race, you've got to be very, very good runner to get the opportunity to get the best out of yourself, if you see what I mean. So it's kind of an equation. I knew it was going to be difficult. I didn't even know that I would be able to run. I mean, I thought, well, I'm doing this arduous kind of life. I've done a lot of cycling. I look after the animals. I was in the retained fire brigade as well. So I thought, you know, all I can do is give it a chance and see. Bearing in mind, when I started the running, I just wanted to complete a marathon. I wasn't thinking about going sub 3 or sub 250 or sub 24. I didn't really know about these things. It was just this idea that there was this illustrious event out there that Paula Radcliffe was doing really well in. People forget that it was only in 1984 that the first Olympic marathon was there for women. It was considered too tough an event for women. Even back in the 70s, you know, there wasn't really that much availability for races. So I just wanted to prove a point that I could complete a marathon. I don't really dwell on it too much. I remember it was Paula Radcliffe. She was commentating on London one year, and she said, you don't want to go to the start of a marathon knowing you've got an injury, because it will find you out there. And I've never been to the start of any marathon knowing that I'm not carrying a massive disability and injury. So I have to kind of blank it out. And I remember, I mean, some races I've finished just literally in tears. I'm in so much pain and, wow, you know, with my knee. But I know that when I stop running, the pain will stop, because it's something just very unique to me. But I don't think, I'm not a person who's a cup is kind of half empty. I like to think of it as being half full, and I'm lucky that I'm, you know, I always, running is hard for me. It's hard both physically and time-wise, fitting it all in. But I realise how blessed I am to be able to do it, because so many people would love to be able to get out there and be able to be free and to be running. And I do think that running is the most purest form of exercise, because it's just you against you. You stop running, you know, you don't move. It's a very, very natural privilege to be able to indulge yourself in. But nevertheless, I do ask a lot of myself. I mean, I think it's ridiculous to think that, you know, I would hope to be out the front with the Kenyans and the Ethiopians. What was I thinking? Just little Fiona from nowhere with, I've had to even fib. I remember one race, they were asking you to, for the elite runners, leave your bottles outside the hotel bedroom, and we'll collect them and put them at the elite water stops. And I'm there in a right conundrum with my mum. I'm thinking, oh, what am I going to do? I don't actually have anything in me, special formulas or anything like this. So we came up with the cunning plan of filling the bottles. We have to tie ribbons around your bottle so you can grab your bottle, because it's so specific to you. We filled them with tap water. It's like, so I'm like, grab it, I almost have my bottle, it's got tap water in it. I'm not going to have anybody's bottle. But yeah, I mean, I am very basic. And in all the road runs that I've ever done, I've never actually taken on board anything but just plain water. Never. I don't have, I mean, I remember I turned up at some races and there's, you know, like half marathons, and there's been people with what looks like grenade belts and of gels and God knows what, and I haven't got any of that. I don't have any of that. I really honestly do not have any of that. In fact, the bizarrest thing about me is I only eat one meal a day, and people simply, really? Yeah, people simply do not believe it or understand it. They do now, but at the time I've actually been on some panels, you know, and sort of like talking about nutrition and this kind of thing. I was thinking, you know, people will say, ask a question like, which do you favour, Fiona, the keto or the paleo diet? And I'll say, hang on a moment, you'll be down there on your phone, search, Google search what they mean. I literally just favour. I went to a doctor's plant-based health professionals conference 2 years ago, and I went with Percy. I must just introduce Percy because he's always with me. And we
I've
are
seen Percy on the TV.
Yeah, he's everywhere. He's my alter ego. But we went up there, and our talk was going to be at 4 o'clock in the afternoon in the auditorium. So the first thing that Sheree did was, she said, can I ask you to put your hand up if you are a health professional, like a doctor or a consultant? And all the hands went up apart from mine. And I'm kind of thinking, right, Fiona, you're punching way above your way here. Get that speech rewritten. I'm all that I'm fiddling about trying to kind of write or think of something other to say than just a few running adventures. And I got up and I did my talk, and it was really, really humbling. You know, they said it was the highlight of the whole conference.
Wow.
I have to be honest about, I can't lie, because it just comes bumbling out of me, and I go to do talks and I go off way off on other tangents and talk about completely other things. I never script anything that I'm going to say. Even when I'm doing like a presentation, there's just random slides coming up behind me because I just don't work that way. And I had to say to them, you know, I do honestly just have one meal a day. And it was only when I went to the biggest marathon in Russia, and I was on the IAAF panel of elite runners.
So real quick, what is that one meal? If it's vegan, it's only one meal a day. What do you eat for that one meal?
Whatever's cheap, locally sourced. We do get food. We get food donated for the pigs, like vegetables and stuff that's on date. Very often it'll be that chopped up. I'm a bit of a vegan. Lentils, rice, pasta, very, very plain, whole grain, nothing fancy. Don't fixate over the calories. Mum does all the cooking still. I don't buy any of the plant-based substitutes. I haven't got the money for it. I've got like all these animals' mouths to feed. Genuinely, mine is the last one I honestly think about. People going about, oh, you know, are you on the low carb, high protein? I love potatoes. You know, I don't fixate about my food. It's the last, probably about the 10th most important thing to me. In terms of veganism is what I'm eating. That's the honest truth.
Do you ever get blood tests to make sure?
I did actually with some of the racers. They have a full body functioning blood test, ECGs, everything, and totally
I'm
pretty perfect.
Really, totally 1 meal a day, and wow.
Yeah, and I don't snack. I mean, I remember when I have. When I've been to the ultra races, I've put pressure on myself to try and eat something for breakfast, and I literally have got up at 4:30 in the morning in the tent, and I've been working with a Mar Baker bar for about an hour to try and get it down because I just can't face breakfast. I can't face it. Tiny little mouthfuls of these Mar Baker bars that I take because they're like 50p and they've got loads of calories and they're quite easy to pack. I sit down about probably 8 o'clock at night, opposite 8 at night. I eat my meal and I go to bed on the full stomach. And it was when I was in this race in Russia, they laid on for us a big feast of the day before the race at lunch. And one of the Kenyan coaches said to me, are you coming to lunch? And I said, oh, I don't actually eat lunch. And he said, oh, why's that? And I said, well, I just eat this one meal a day in the evening. He said, the warrior diet. And I went, yes. Yes, the warrior diet. I've been a big exponent of that for many years now. And he said, oh, a lot of the Kenyans do that. It's like kind of intermittent fasting. It's the most efficient way to utilize and all this kind of thing. It's going way over here then. It's the warrior diet. I'm on the warrior diet. I'm on the warrior diet. And it's just what fits in with my lifestyle. I mean, I was literally donning BA at short notice to go off firefighting. I sit down, I do, food is cooked from scratch, it's prepared with love. My mum has always done it. And I like to sit down and honestly contemplate, and it sounds a bit deep and a bit kind of, you know, she's some sort of saint, so I'm not. I actually think the most important thing for me about food is always remembering I'm lucky enough to have it. I'm lucky enough to not be fixating where the next meal's coming from. I'm lucky enough to be sitting down with my family, and my mum and dad still actually live with me. And I'm not worried about being displaced or like bombs or shells going off around me.
Mm-hmm.
It's all about remembering how blessed I am to be in the meal in the kind of circumstances and situation I am in. And I think a lot of people lose sight of that. I really do. And somebody asked me, you know, they were talking about Marathon des Sables and these ultra races where you just turn up. I remember in 2015-16, I had Louis Sahoyas, Oscar-winning film director at the Sanctuary, filming me. And there were 14 film crew here. And he's saying about when's your next race. And I was going off to do Marathon des Sables again, and he's going, but when do you get a shower? I mean, you don't, do you? Well, when do you change your clothes? Well, you don't, Louis. The whole week. And he's all Hollywood. I mean, you know, obviously he's all Hollywood, you know, and I'm there like, you know, we don't get a change of clothes. You don't get anything but a small place in a tent to which to lay your head for 7 days and a limited supply of water. And it allows you to reconnect with yourself and with nature and the blessings that you actually have. So when you get back out the desert, you're looking at things like the tap, and you're fixated on the tap, and you're like in the kitchen, oh, it's a miracle. What? Well, look, that you turn this on, look what comes out, water. And you're not thinking, is it Perrier or is it Evian? You're thinking it's water and I can drink it. And that's the blessing. And, you know, you're not worried about food. You know, you realize that some people are. And it's kind of a bit crass when I say it's the hardest, most safe thing you can probably do, these races, in that you're always chaperoned. At any point, you can put your hand up and say, actually, I want to go back to the 5-star hotel in Wazira. I've had enough now. But you don't, because failure is not an option. You don't want to give in. But some people haven't got that option. Some people right now around the world have not got that option. They haven't. They're sitting in tents, in displacement camps. They're starving. There's poverty. There's disease. They haven't. It's not a flipping race to them. It's their life. And you come back with a very great imperative to try and make a difference somewhere along the line for others, rather than constantly thinking about yourself. And that is the truth. I mean, don't get me wrong, some people do it as a bucket list. Oh, I've done MDS, I've done this, I've done that. I honestly don't. I really don't. When Keegan came to do his filming, it's like, where's your trophies, Fiona? Have you got like a scrapbook of? No, I haven't. I haven't got any of that. I don't care about it. I've done this for a different reason. I really have done it for a different reason. And that's why I wanted to call the film Running for Good. It's not running for the good of others, running to try and make some good, a little tiny bit of good on this planet where there's a whole lot of bad. So I really don't bother much about myself. And as I say, when this latest filming came and they're there like wanting to put makeup on, and like, that's not me. It's not who I am. It really is just me, and I am me. And there's no alter me or other me, that it's just, that's who I am, take it or leave it. And some people are shocked at the daily life that I have. I do get up at 3:30 in the morning. Keegan said, don't ask me to film you at 3:30 in the morning, because I ain't getting up at that time. In fact, when they first told me about Marathon des Sables, it's like, what is it? What is this race? Oh, well, it's really brutal, Fiona. You have to get up at 4:30 in the morning when they wake you up, and you have to run, it can be a marathon a day. And I'm thinking, actually, that sounds like a bit of holiday to me, because I get up at 3:30 and I run like 20 miles a day or whatever, and I've got all the jobs to do as well. But yeah, I enjoy challenging myself, I think. But I like to be able to find new things out about myself, and these races do afford you the opportunity. They take you to some very, very dark places, and you learn how to come through them. And that hopefully gives you the tools to enable you to be a better person when you come back to the life that you normally lead. And I don't moan that I'm out every day, 7 days a week, and I'll be out to whatever time the animals need me, because actually I'm really lucky to be able to do it. Really am lucky to be able to do it. I've got the health to be able to do it, and I'm motivated enough to be able to do it. And it's easy when you look at what you have got rather than what you haven't got. If you constantly fixate, oh, it's really awful and I'm cold out there, you know, you're gonna, it's a decline. Yeah, but it's not hard for me. Yeah, sometimes it's a bit hard when it's cold, you know. Yeah. I don't like dive out of bed and think, oh, great, it's 3:30, I can go for a run. You know, sometimes I am that person that's like, you know, putting it off, thinking, but, you know, generally speaking, I still find it, you know, I'm quite naive as well, despite what you know, people say, oh, I've been around the world twice. I mean, one of the challenges I did was a marathon on every continent, every day of the week. So literally it was every day. You flew to Melbourne and then back to Abu Dhabi, then you know, you were on the, you know, planes, and then just getting, I did it dressed as a cow, just to raise awareness for the suffering of the dairy industry. So that was an added challenge for me. Yeah, I'm, you know, I'm nothing special. That's important. I think one message that I would like to give to other people is I really am nothing special. If I can do it, you can do it. And you can probably do it an awful lot better than I've done it.
Yeah, honestly, I find your message so like awesome. Like it seems so selfless, and really, I think a lot of people can learn from you about how organic you are, which is really admirable. But I just got a couple of small questions just to wrap up. So one of them is, what's your favorite book?
My favorite book? Seven Pillars of Wisdom.
Seven Pillars of Wisdom, awesome. And last question is, what's your favorite quote, if you have one?
Quotes, let me think. It's quite hard. Mine's gone a bit blank.
No, I've thrown you quite a hard question.
Yeah. I guess I don't know. Nothing is written.
Amazing.
Nothing is written. You know, that's what I've always challenged myself, is believe in yourself, really. But I don't tend to follow a path of I don't tend to put, I just follow my own path. I am who I am, and a lot of people they find me, I'm a bit naive, I'm a bit childlike. I want to believe that everyone's lovely. I want to believe that I really do. I've never changed. I am very, very honest, and I just want to I want it to be a better world. I want people to be nicer to each other. I really do want that. I want to end suffering, but not just, you know, it's not just a niche of animal suffering, it's everyone's suffering. It really pains me to think that I'm sitting here now and some people are in some it's some inflicted poverty that we've put them in. That really hurts, that we could make so much of a difference to other people and we don't. Or we have the ability to switching off and not connecting with the suffering of others. That really hurts. I can't see why, you know, other people aren't as motivated and inspired to make a difference in whatever field. I think everyone lives their life like me. I genuinely do. So when people say it's a bit extraordinary, it's not, because it's completely normal to me and I've always done it. But, you know, everyone's different, and I do respect everybody's individuality. I mean, my life has been all about sort of I don't know. I've got a lot of discipline. That's probably my strongest point, is that I've just got a lot of discipline. It's something that I think we're losing sight of. You know, for a lot of the time, it seems today's society seems to be all about demand and self-entitlement, and for me, it's not. It's more about discipline and self-fulfillment, I think. But you know, well, I don't know. We seem to be a culture of offence, and you know, everybody's offended, but they don't seem to see the offence, and they don't seem to bother about offending anybody else. I don't know. We're a bit narcissistic. I'm not of this society. I'm living in my own little virtual reality, I think. But it's been a strange journey that I'm on. Let's put it like this. But my hope it's just that I can continue making a difference till I'll probably be running after my own coffin. down the road where I'm going. But yeah, but I mean, as I say, with promoting veganism and pushing, you know, veganism, I'm not trying to sell anything. I think that's where people are a bit, you know, kind of, I'm just selling a concept, if you like. I'm not asking people to do what I've done. I'm not asking people to buy anything. I'm just saying if I can inspire anybody, if they find it interesting or you know, motivational, then that's great. But it's not about, happiness doesn't come from without and you buy it in. It comes from within and you spread it. And to me, I don't know.
Thank you so much for that answer. And thanks so much for your time today. I really enjoyed this talk and I can't wait to share it and post it and for people to hear it. So before we end, where can people find you? What are all, you're on Instagram. Where else can people look you up?
Oh, blimey, all right. Well, I'm this is where I'm not very good. I'm called, you can find me on Instagram.
Okay, cool.
Fiona Oakes, and I've got the sanctuary at towerhillstables.org. If you, I did a ring-in once about a comment at James O'Brien, and it was about sport and drugs in sport, and I didn't say who I was, and he butted in when I just rung him. He said, "Are you Fiona Oakes?" And I said, "Yes." He said, "Oh, blimey." I said, "How did you know?" He said, "Well, I just searched Fiona and marathon, and you came popping up everywhere." But that's why I'm not very good at self-promotion. Let's put it like that.
Okay.
And I should learn, but it's not something I'm interested in. It's just yeah. But you can find me on the internet. I'm lurking about there.
Awesome.
You know?
I'll put all of your main links in the comments of this video. But thank you so much for your time.
You're very, very welcome.